Hi, I'm Dr. Welch. The course is OTC2, and today's presentation is Choosing a Dietary Supplement Brand.
So this lady walks into your pharmacy. She's asking you for some information. A friend recommended ginkgo biloba. She's saying, "Oh, seem to be forgetting things lately. I have some memory problems. I was wondering if you can help me out." Maybe you check her prescription drug profile, find out that there's nothing that's really going to interact with the ginkgo biloba, and you want to go ahead and make that recommendation. So you send her out to the aisle. By the way, statistically, this person is a middle-aged, college-educated female. So she goes out into the aisle and finds this. Okay, she's looking for one particular product to take. She finds a multitude of products. Kind of overwhelming. So the point of this lecture is to go over how you can inform your consumers to potentially make decisions on brands that are a little bit better than others, or that you feel a little more confident making recommendations. So she, as the consumer, goes out into the aisle. She picks three ginkgo bilobas. She reads the label. The first one says, supports brain function. Pretty good. The next one says, helps maintain blood circulation to the brain. She likes that, right? And she also kind of likes the blue labeling that's on that particular one. Made by the highest standards of company XYZ. I've never heard of company XYZ, but they have the highest standards, so that must be good. Well, which brand do we take? How do I know that the brand of ginkgo that I'm taking has what's labeled, has no contaminants in it? I just don't know. And in fact, let me show you to a study here. This was a study actually done here at ETSU. Dr. Collins and some students did this study where they took 13 bottles of different brands of vitamin D, each of them claiming to have 50 micrograms in the bottle. And if you look at the dots and the error bars reflected by the orange bars, you can see that most of those products did not have the 50 micrograms of vitamin D that they listed. Now, if it falls within that orange range, that's considered to be close enough just with the errors as part of the testing. They ran us through an HPLC machine. But let's say you picked up brand A of vitamin D and you were expecting 50 micrograms of vitamin D. That product has 10, not nearly enough. And this was done here on campus from products that you can go out and buy on the shelves today. So let me introduce four companies to you right now. The United States Pharmacopoeia, Consumer Lab, Natural Products Association, and NSF International. We're going to talk about these. The first one is the United States Pharmacopoeia. We know USP from their compendium that they started publishing 100 plus years ago. The compendium, that cookbook, if you will, of recipes to make certain products out there on the market. The USP as an organization is nonprofit. They're an independent organization, meaning they're not affiliated with any government entity or office. However, the government recognizes the work they do for standards that are being set in the industry. One of the things that USP does is a dietary supplement verification program. What does that mean? Well, manufacturers have the opportunity to send their products to USP as an independent third-party verifier, and they run them through a series of tests. These tests look for, does the product contain the actual amount of the ingredient that's listed on the label? That's a good thing. They also look for harmful levels of contaminants. Does this have lead in it, for example, which would be a bad thing? So we want to make sure that's not in those products. They look to see if the facility is manufacturing these products using good manufacturing practices. So they test the product, but they also kind of look at the facilities and their policies. And lastly, they look to see if the product will dissolve and break down in the body. The supplement's not very useful if it never gets absorbed and never gets distributed into the body. So if a product that a manufacturer sends to USP Labs and USP independently verifies it and it passes all four of those tests, then the company has the privilege of putting this logo onto their label. So if you see this logo on a product, it means it's passed those four verification steps. And it's a product that has been independently verified. We know it has the same amount of ingredients that's listed on the label. It has a minimal amount of contaminants. It's made with good manufacturing practices, and It's a product that will disintegrate and dissolve in the body appropriately. Now, Consumer Labs has a similar program available with them, and they have a website here, but there are some distinct differences from USP. So the mission of Consumer Labs is to, have through independent testing. They are a third-party testing facility. They're not related with the government, but what's different here is that manufacturers do not have the option to send their product to Consumer Lab. Instead, Consumer Lab goes out and buys the product. If I make some ginkgo biloba, the Consumer Lab will go out and pick up a bottle wherever it's sold, online, in stores, wherever it may be. So the difference is a subtle, but if it can be significant if you think about it. If I'm sending my products as a manufacturer to USP, I'm going to check and triple check and double check that product to see if it's appropriate before I send it to the labs. For consumer lab testing, they got to pick it off the shelf, so I got to make sure all of my lots, all the batches of my product are appropriate. What exactly do they look for in their product testing? Well, for the ginkgo biloba, specifically 100 to 150% of ginkgo as determined by the flavonols listed there. They want to make sure there's minimal amounts of lead. That's a good thing. They want to make sure it disintegrates according to USP standards. So they're looking at USP, and they want to make sure the label is appropriate given what the FDA and DSHEA has put out as far as labeling requirements. If products pass those tests, and it's different for each product. So ginkgo has the 100 to 150% and zero point 0.5 micrograms as an example, but if you pick a different product, those standards are going to vary. How do you know what the standards are? Well, you actually have to be, as a consumer or a provider, you actually have to be a member of Consumer Lab. Membership to sign up to have access to these materials will run you about $3 a month. So it's not too expensive, but it is an added cost for a provider or a consumer to be able to read their profiles and all of the results of their testing. The third company is the Natural Products Association, and this one's a little bit different, and I'll explain. So their mission is to advocate for consumers, but also you see the tail end of that, it's really to support the retailers and suppliers of products, and I'll go into that. NPA really has two types of verification programs. The first one is the natural seal. So what this says is that a product basically is natural. It has natural ingredients. It was made in a sustainable, responsible manner, and it has some safety standards with it. This product is deemed natural, and this applies. And what they do is they test personal care items as well as cleaning items that you would use around the house. And if it passes the series of criteria that they set, it can be called natural, and it contains this particular seal. It doesn't get into the level of detail, I think, therapeutically that a consumer lab or a USP would do as far as people taking these supplements. It merely says whether or not it's natural. And on their website, you can actually search for products that have this natural seal. So is it natural? That's one of the verification programs they have. The second verification program is their good manufacturing practices, the GMP program. And what this does, this looks at the facilities that are producing these products, the manufacturers. They do consider the FDA good manufacturing practices guidelines that have been set out, and they do some audits and sort of some third-party verification of those facilities. If a facility is certified, you'll see this logo somewhere on their website, and you can search the NPA website to find those companies across the country who have that certification. So a little bit different than Consumer Lab and USP. This basically says, is the product truly natural per their standards, and is it made in good manufacturing ways? The final company is NSF. And NSF evaluates a whole variety of things. They look at playgrounds, they look at water quality, they look at indoor air quality, but they also look at dietary supplements. Their dietary supplement certification program looks at 5 different areas, fairly similar to what USP and Consumer Lab would do. They look at the toxicology, they look at the formulation and if it matches what's on the label. They inspect facilities for good manufacturing practices, and if the product passes all of their testing, that product can put that blue and white NSF label that you see there onto their own label. And NSF maintains a website that you can search for products or manufacturers that have gone through that certification process. So that's another method of ensuring that products are of high quality. So going back and to summarize, if a patient comes and they have three different brands of ginkgo biloba and they're not sure which brand to pick, certainly if you see any of these types of labels that show that there's been some level of third-party verification of its contents, then that's a product that could be, that you may want to recommend to your patients. So you look for that USP label or the consumer lab label or NSF label, and hopefully your patients can have a better peace of mind, and you as a provider can have a better peace of mind that what's contained in the bottle is on the label and they match up well. Thank you very much for listening.